Based on top 30 visits, prospect interviews, and how NFL teams are preparing for the draft coming up, here are some fantasy wide receiver rooms that are at the most risk of being blown up and your fantasy football players may be in jeopardy. We'll start out with the wide receivers that are in high jeopardy of losing their starting job and finish out this video with the number one most dangerous wide receiver. If you have him, you might want to consider going through and trading him. Make sure to stick around for that. But first things first, let's go through and set our groundwork. Why is it important to understand this? If we know what areas of an offense NFL teams are focusing on before the draft, we can anticipate them before they happen, which gives us an edge and lets us make moves before the general public. Here are all the teams that are interviewing top wide receiver prospects that may affect your fantasy football team and your deep sleeper wide receivers. Number one is going to be the Packers. As we go over this, guys, if you are new, please make sure to go through and subscribe to this channel. You're here for a reason, and I provide this value 100% for free all the way through the year, but they haven't been able to find elite wide receiver talent since Devontae Adams, and historically, they just don't draft wide receivers early. I do see that changing this year, though. Jaden Reed is not a number one wide receiver. We saw how that worked out at the end of last season. I have them drafting Egbuka at the 23 pick from Ohio State. He's an extremely versatile wide receiver and something that the Packers are missing, more or less. If you look at the coaching tree basis, he can play a similar role to what a Puka Nacua is and what he can do compared to a Jaden Reed and a Christian Watson being two downfield, more one-dimensional type guys. He can fit in this offense. He was the wide receiver 42 in route win rate. He was the wide receiver 88 in true catch rate and the wide receiver 21 in yards after catch, despite being the wide receiver 4 in target quality and the wide receiver 2 in catchable target rate. Those numbers just don't really mix very well. Similar stories also go for Christian Watson and Dontavian Wicks. When you go down the line of these wide receivers, they're great number 2, number 3 options, but they're definitely not a number 1. I do see them going through and getting a top wide receiver with their first overall pick and going from there. Number 2, just as likely in my opinion to 100% go out and draft a top wide receiver, it is going to be the Cowboys. They've interviewed 6 wide receivers so far and they are sitting at the 12th overall pick. If nobody goes through and takes a wide receiver by their pick outside of Travis Hunter, obviously, they're going to get Ted McMillan. They're taking a top guy. The defense, they have stars. They're solid already. They don't really need to go too deep into that, but they don't have a real number 2 threat on offense. No tight ends, no real wide receivers outside of CeeDee Lamb. That's all they get, and he's been the number 1 for the past few years. CeeDee Lamb can line up anywhere. We saw that last year. His slot percentage is pretty high. His success rate against man coverage and zone coverage, obviously he's one of the best wide receivers in the league. McMillan can come in and play as an X wide receiver and kind of elevate the offense and open up the field a bit more for CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott, all to work. Tolbert as the 3, that's perfectly fine. He can fit in there and elevate this offense, which is going to be very positive for Dak Prescott, another guy that I am 100% buying in on before the NFL draft. If you want to know why an old, aging, possibly mid quarterback on a team that can't win in the playoffs is top my charts for trading, go check out my pinned video that I have here. I talked about it in a previous video. Just because he's old doesn't mean he's a bad player, but I would recommend you guys go check that out. Number 3, though, the Titans, obviously, they aren't going to use their number 1 overall pick in round 1 to take a wide receiver. They're going with Cam Ward. You don't say Treylon Burks is in your top 5 wide receivers if that's not happening. If you saw that, you saw that. But I see them swinging on guys like Jalen Noel or Jalen Lane in round 2 and Jalen Royals, Arian Smith in round 4, maybe even Dante Johnson. If they're drafting Cam Ward, which 100% in my opinion they are, you have to believe that they'll draft some help around him as a guarantee. Ridley, he's going to be 31 next season. His success rate and his metrics aren't necessarily amazing. He was the wide receiver 47 in yards after the catch and wide receiver 33 in route win rate. To be fair, a lot of that inefficiency is because of Will Levis and how truly terrible he was. If you've been around my channel, you know how much I talked about that. He was the wide receiver 86 in target quality and the wide receiver 97 in catchable target rate. That's just not his fault. When you get a guy like Cam Ward in here, it's going to elevate play. But you have Treylon Burks at the number 2, Jaquan Jackson at the 3. It's not necessarily a great wide receiver core that's going to help Cam Ward. I think it's going to happen. Also, the numbers are backing that they are going to take some wide receivers here. But number 4, the Broncos, I could easily see them going all in on the offense because, again, you have Bo Nix on his rookie contract. The Commanders are doing that with Jaden Daniels. You can kind of see the trends here. Their defense is one of the best in the league. They don't need to expand on that. But their top wide receivers are Courtland Sutton. He's turning 30 this year. Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin. This one is tricky because I do see them going at best pick available at the number 20. If that so happens to be a top running back prospect like Amarion Hampton, if it happens to be a top wide receiver prospect like Luther Burton or Matthew Golden, so be it. Again, I have them on the list for both wide receiver and running back because that's really just what they need. Regardless of what position they are in, they're going to get a guy that helps this season. Bo Nix, Courtland Sutton, his value might decrease a little bit, especially now that they have a top tight end in Evan Ingram. He's not a terrible player by any means, and then you come in and grab another wide receiver in the draft, but there are 2 teams that are 100% a lock of drafting at least one top wide receiver this year. that is going to be the Browns and the Raiders, already holding a minimum of 10 visits with top wide receivers. Again, literally all of the top guys. In my mind, I see the Browns going through and getting Travis Hunter at the number 2. I think Ashton Jeanty goes to the Raiders in round 1. Then they go through and draft more wide receivers in round 2+. But if you guys want me to do a full video going over my full NFL mock draft, I 100% will do it. Just let me know in the comments and I'll go through and make it. But Jerry Jeudy, he had a good season last year. He's not necessarily an alpha X wide receiver though. They have Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, Deshaun Watson at quarterback. It's serviceable, not amazing. And then outside of Jerry Jeudy, you do have Cedric Tillman and David Bell. About as bad of a wide receiver 2-3 combo that you can get in the NFL. Myles Garrett, he's not going to re-sign a massive contract with the Browns, which he did. If they didn't promise him some kind of offensive success, they're probably going to bring in somebody that can do that. The Raiders are in a similar boat in that situation. They got Geno Smith, a serviceable quarterback. Myers is a good wide receiver 1. Trey Tucker, Kyle Phillips at the 2 and 3. They desperately do need another weapon to cement this offense around Brock Bowers and the potential offense that they could have. But the Chiefs, they're the number 1 most likely team to not go through and draft any wide receivers. They've made so many moves over the past few seasons. They keep adding to this wide receiver room. They drafted Rashee Rice 2 years ago. They got Worthy last season, brought in Hollywood Brown and Juju. They lost DeAndre Hopkins, but still, they have Travis Kelce. All of these guys, they're going to take a majority of the work here. We don't need to go through and worry about if they're going to draft another wide receiver. But on the other hand, there are a few teams that really are not interviewing any top offensive prospects, wide receivers, or running backs. Surprisingly, the Falcons are number 1. This is great news for everybody here. Drake London should continue to dominate. His underlying numbers were really good, and his success rate, efficiency against man and zone coverage, they were great, even if his fantasy points didn't necessarily reflect that as much as it should have. It's a great sign for Darnell Mooney as well, a good first read target getter from Penix in his 3 starting games. Nobody's expecting to replace Bijan. The Eagles are another team here that are on the list of not interviewing any offensive prospects. They've been in talks of acquiring Tyreek Hill. If that's true or not, they already have a full wide receiver room. Nobody's going to replace Saquon. They just won a Super Bowl. The Lions, again, another team here similar with that situation, a stacked backfield, a great offense. No need to improve on that. Surprisingly, though, the Colts right now are not really interviewing a ton of top running backs or wide receivers, but if you guys do want me to make my mock draft, I do have them going through and taking Tyler Warren at the tight end position here. I think he fits amazing with the team. It's not necessarily a huge fit for them at the position, but he run blocks great. It can be great for Jonathan Taylor. So let me know what you guys think about these players. I seriously appreciate you guys watching this video all the way through. All glory to the man above, and I will see you in the next video coming later this week.